As the title of the video suggests, this lecture is not a typical lecture where I'm going to be talking about a specific topic. Instead, this lecture gives you an overview, that is, the journey of a company all the way from incorporation to liquidation. So this is essentially a bird's eye view of the entire journey, and the details are going to be skipped entirely. So first of all, in order to create a company, an application for incorporation must be filed, and of course this application must be accompanied by the relevant documents, most important of which are the Memorandum of Association and the Articles of Association. Once these documents are approved, the company is issued with a certificate of incorporation. Now, depending on whether the company is a public company or a private company, there are going to be certain steps involved before the company can commence business. But I'm not going to be discussing those steps in this lecture. Okay, so the next crucial step is that the owners or the shareholders are going to meet, and in that meeting, they are going to elect a board of directors. That is, they're going to elect a board of individuals who are going to administer and control the affairs of the company. And essentially, this group of people is called the board of directors. And the board of directors, in turn, hires the corporate officers and managers who will actually run the company on a day-to-day basis. And these officers and managers use the money that is received from the initial sale of shares, that is, the initial issue of shares, in order to start doing the business that the company was set up for. So basically, they're going to buy equipment, supplies, and of course they're going to hire workers. And once the business, that is the company's business, actually starts producing goods and these goods are sold, then money starts flowing into the business. And of course, if the business is profitable, then the earnings are either paid out to the shareholders as dividends, or they are reinvested into the business, or of course there is a possibility that some of the earnings are paid out to the shareholders and some of them are reinvested in the business. Later on, if the company decides to expand, then in order to assist the expansion process, the company may decide to issue more shares, that is, to issue more of the unissued share capital, because remember, there is the authorized share capital, which represents the maximum amount of shares that the company may issue, and there is the paid up share capital, that is the share capital that the company has actually issued. And you can look at my other video where I discussed the link between these two, that is the authorized and issued share capital of a company, in case you don't already know the meanings of these terms. But right now, let's move on to discuss liquidation. And well, just in case you're thinking why I'm discussing liquidation all of a sudden, well, just remember that it's not always going to be the case that a company is going to be very successful and profitable. There is also the possibility that later on, instead of being profitable and instead of deciding to expand, maybe things don't go as planned and things don't go as well for the company as expected, and the company may find itself going into losses. And remember that because of the fact that companies have limited liabilities, so company law is going to be tested only when the company fails, and therefore a knowledge of the laws dealing with failed companies is therefore extremely essential. And of course, this is not a detailed lecture on this particular topic, but is instead just going to provide a very brief overview. In short, liquidation is a process where all of the company's assets are going to be sold, and then all of the debts are going to be paid, and in a sense, the company's existence comes to an end. And of course, whether or not the company owns enough assets to pay off and settle all of its liabilities is another question altogether. But the main idea is that a company ceases to exist once it is dissolved, and it is the process leading up to its demise, that is a company's death, which is termed as winding up or simply liquidation. Although one very important point to note and remember is that it's not necessary that a company is going to be wound up, that is, winding up does not necessarily occur only when a company is insolvent, that is, when the company is unable to pay its debts. In fact, there's also something called voluntary winding up, that is, a solvent company may initiate its own winding up process so that a solvent company may also be wound up, that is, Liquidation or winding up may take place for a company that is insolvent and for a company that is solvent.